Jessica Hanan is a generative AI specialist at Altruistic AI. She focuses on leveraging AI to create solutions that enhance business operations while considering ethical concerns, data privacy, and improving the quality of human AI interactions. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you so much.
We are live at Magnet Network Live. Did you just come from the other sessions?
Yeah, so I just finished at Vivian Ming, and then I caught the beginning of the World of Opportunities with Mark and Rob from Altruistic.
And what was your biggest takeaway?
I had heard Vivian Ming speaking before, so I think she's always got like really interesting perspectives because she focuses so much on AI, but bringing that neuroscience and like kind of psychology element in is always interesting to hear about.
I'm interested to hear what you have to say. First question, I guess, for you, Jessica. How do you see generative AI transforming industries in the next 5 years?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, it's already transforming industries. So
I feel like it just happened like the blink of an eye.
Absolutely. So I think that's something that like a lot of people don't really think through. And I think that that's a big fear factor for a lot of people is that it's happening so fast.
Yes.
And like, I think especially in my job, sometimes I get kind of that, you know, like expert in the space and I don't realize that other people are not thinking about this 24/7.
Yeah.
And when I talk to people that don't work in technology, it's always quite a shock of how little they've experimented with it. But yeah, it's changing so much. I mean, we work with industries across manufacturing sectors, services, and we're seeing like really interesting organizations starting to explore AI in different ways.
What are those different ways that you're seeing?
So there's a few different entry points. So it depends on the maturity curve of how much they're thinking about AI strategy. So usually with most organizations, they're right at the beginning because it's so new. And usually with them, they usually start with like an AI strategy or they start with upskilling their staff, which is, in my opinion, the best way to start because you need a comprehensive strategy that focuses on people and technology, where a lot of organizations who are maybe a little bit more AI centric and have been for a while are diving right into the technology pretty quickly and building private language models and building really crazy experiences with generative AI for their staff.
Talk to me about the challenges of upskilling staff and maybe the fear, because still when I talk to people about AI, and I have to admit, myself as well, there's a little bit of fear, a little bit of timidity in that, just not knowing what the future holds, hearing people saying different things about AI. So what does that look like in upskilling staff to be able to welcome and bring in AI into the day-to-day?
Yeah, absolutely. Like people are definitely afraid of it. And I totally understand why they are. And in some ways they should be because they're not receiving the correct education. So I understand why they have that perspective. And it's quite sad because when I go through the upskilling process with an organization, you rapidly see them transform and have a completely different perspective on AI and how it can be utilized. And I think what a lot of people miss out on is they think it's this big expert entity that could take their job.
Yes.
Where once they go through the upskilling process, they realize it's basically just like an assistant or an intern.
Enhancing.
Yeah, it's just enhancing their ability to, I think what it's really doing is it's enhancing their ability to focus on tasks that are specific to their expertise and helping them to move away from doing mundane tasks that don't really leverage their expertise so much.
Yeah.
So they're able to develop on, exploring different avenues based on their domain knowledge and starting to implement new initiatives inside their organization and things like that.
And what should businesses do to stay ahead of, these changes that continue to happen when it comes to AI?
Yeah, so I think the biggest and best thing to do is actually just experiment because there's so many free tools out there. And especially in Canada, you have such a big small, medium enterprise market that don't have the capital to invest in large language models or private models. And there's so many free resources out there that you can utilize to just literally use as your playground. And that's what we've tried to do at Altruistic as well. With the training program, we have like a tool that helps you to get advice back on how good or how bad your question is to the large language model. And that's really just to give people this playground to understand how to improve themselves across the tasks that they deem relevant for them instead of, I'm sure you've seen them on LinkedIn, like top 10 tips for marketing with GPT.
Yep.
Newsflash, they're not.
They're not the top
They're
10,
not good.
Jessica.
They're so bad. Don't use them.
Let's talk about the ethics around AI. What ethical considerations should companies prioritize when integrating AI into their business processes?
Yeah, I think there's really kind of two levels that they need to look at. One is focusing on their data and data privacy and all that stuff that people don't really like to talk about.
Yeah.
That is the boring stuff, let's say, but it's really important, especially when you have a lot of staff utilizing probably ChatGPT without even senior staff knowledge.
Right.
And it's actually just then leaning into the other side of educating them to understand that that is something really bad, that they could be leaking private information that's super sensitive that a competitor could somehow find on ChatGPT through different types of querying. And so I think it's really approaching it from that two perspectives of thinking about your people and how to make them feel better. Because what usually happens inside organizations is it's C-level individuals making decisions about what technology is going to be implemented, and your junior staff or your associates don't really have a say, and that's never going to change. But they, especially with generative AI, they really need to consider the people in the decision-making processes, because we've seen it at Altruistic. We have a really strong partnership with Ernst & Young in Europe, and they built a private model with OpenAI, and they have a 15% adoption rate internally because they didn't train their staff. So they don't know how to integrate it into their daily tasks. So it's a waste.
That just opens up a whole other line of questioning for me. What are some of the big mistakes then that companies do in thinking, okay, we need to jump on this AI bandwagon, and yet, as you say, they're leaving their staff behind and making some big mistakes.
Yeah.
Costly mistakes.
Big mistakes. And I think the worst part about it is that they could so easily capitalize on the advantages that they can get from these tools. And they're just missing such a small, crucial step.
What is that small, crucial step most companies are missing?
A comprehensive strategy as to how to integrate and uplift technology and people at the same time.
But does that mean, Jessica, a comprehensive strategy that brings alongside their staff and is not high level, where they're like, okay, now the gods have spoken, this is what we're going to do?
Absolutely. So what we've seen a lot is that I lead our training programs. So I've been in many organizations where very traditional organizations like the likes of Ferrari and MetLife, who are,
I don't know if they're traditional organizations, Jessica, but I get it.
they're like steeped in culture. They're not known to be very progressive, let's say. And they're not the first to usually jump on the AI bandwagon. But I've met with the staff there, and like they're the everyday staff that are making sure the company is really operating. And at the beginning, they were saying to me, AI can't really do anything for me. Like, I work at Ferrari. It's this amazing company. What can AI possibly do? And they go through the training program. And it's really interesting because you have everyone from junior level to managers then able to feed into a comprehensive AI strategy. Because the reality is no matter what technology they're implementing it for a specific business use case or problem statement. And it's better coming from the staff than coming from, a consultancy firm that goes in and tells you what type of technology you should implement. So it leads to this more of a culture ecosystem around the change management process.
We kind of already talked about it. How do organizations make sure that their employees are prepared to collaborate? But I want to go back to productivity and creativity. How do you see that blossom and grow when a company does this right?
Yeah. So it's a really interesting story. And I think Ferrari is actually the best use case for that. Because at the beginning, we had a large team of 100 people that was involved in the technology creation process, but also the training process. And at the beginning, they were super skeptical. Like, they did not want to be involved in this project. They had just been put on it and they had no choice, basically. And I understood their reservations. But then as they go through the training program that we put them through, immediately from module 2 out of 6 modules, you can see that culture shift.
Interesting.
Of people actually curious about different types of use cases they could possibly build to utilize AI to help them with different tasks. And one of the things, and I think what's wrong with the conversation around AI is everyone's coming out with these big, crazy use cases that catches your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And they're great, but the reality of it is it's the small use cases that are the most boring ones. So they came to us saying in Europe, there's a lot of regulatory rules around, ESG and sustainability, and there's a lot of goals that they need to adhere to as an organization, but there's so many coming out all the time. So how can we possibly read and keep up as humans? And that's such a simple use case, but it was super impactful for them. And there's no way a consultancy organization could have came in to identify that. They had to identify it themselves.
Thank you so much, Jessica.
Of course.
Really
Thank you for having me.
That was Jessica Hanan, lead AI innovation strategist at Altruistic AI.